Hello everyone, the Slayer246 here for another video. This one's going to be different because the little concept I made, I gave a little teaser on in the last video, I have fully developed and will be going over it in this video. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So let's start off with his signature weapon. So it currently does not have a name, but gifted to Exalt by Dante when he was still struggling to control his own powers. As a result, this tome became imbued with Exalt's energy, transforming it into what it is now. So yep, Exalt's signature weapon. Yep, I'm reading off of a Google document I made. I'm just going to move the thing to make it easier to see while looking at the camera. But yep, Exalt's signature weapon can have up to 3 tome mods regardless of type, and for each fewer than 3 used, the tome mods receive a 25% increase in effectiveness. So the chances of the canticles activating in the amount of an ability stat given by the invocations and the amount of energy regen given by Zada invocation specifically. And like every good and every time you kill an ability, you gain 3 energy. Wait, did I say ability? I meant enemy. Yep. So the alternate fire releases 3 homing projectiles that will bounce between enemies but will never hit the same enemy twice. It is guaranteed to apply void to those it hits. Each projectile can hit 5 enemies but only lasts 5 seconds. In Exalt's hands, each projectile gives 5 energy whenever they kill an enemy. So, pretty simple stuff. Now let's get into the stats. So the main fire has 250 radiation damage, 15% critical chance, and 2.8 critical damage multiplier, with a 60% status chance and a 3.0 fire rate. So you're going to be shooting this thing fairly quickly and building its alternate fire up rather quickly while applying a decent amount of status procs. And its alternate fire deals a base of 500 void damage, has a 40% critical chance, a 3.0 critical multiplier, and 20% status chance. So, the alt fire will be doing a bunch of damage with okay status. And as these are homing projectiles, they are guaranteed to hit enemies. Now let's talk a bit about the tome. Like, this is definitely I don't know exactly how it'll work in the game. However, it is definitely going to be a decent weapon that's not purely falling into the utility archetype like the Grimoire is. And it's another tome which, in my honest opinion, we need more of. And the little void aspect will make sense later. So, with his signature weapon out of the way, let's move on over to Exalt. So yep, Exalt, which is his placeholder name if y'all have, and yeah, for any of these, if y'all have suggestions for names, just leave them in the comments below. But after being experimented on by the Organ to make their strongest weapon yet, capable of fueling its own powers, he rebelled and Dante took him under his wing soon after to teach him the ways of a scholar. So he's Exalt's a bit of a mix between Weapon of War and the little wizard archetype that Dante is. Which I honestly think is a nice little mix. Machine and wizard. So, yep. His base stats, he has 300 health, 250 armor, 800 shield, a sprint speed of 1, and 300 energy max. Now, he has so many shields because he is intended to be a shield tank, and he has the highest base energy max in the game because he's very energy hungry, so he's going to want a lot of energy to work with. So, yep, his passive, upon death, you become destabilized, becoming an amalgamation of your exalted arsenal. You'll remain in this state for your bleed out duration. You'll need to stabilize yourself to return to normal, which is how he self-revives with this. Every kill grants 5% stability, and every health energy orb you collect grants 3% stability. And, a little bonus, energy orbs give 3 times as much energy as normal. So a regular energy orb will give him 75 energy instead of 25. A super energy orb, because yes, they do exist, even though they're rare, will give 150 energy. So yeah, this passive fits really well in his kit because he's a experiment. And experiments can go wrong. And the energy orbs giving more energy is because he's energy hungry, like really energy hungry. So with his passive out of the way, let's move on to the first ability. So his first ability has an energy cost of 25. It's called Scholar's Fortitude. And yes, and all of his abilities I managed to give names to. Except for his passive, but those don't always have a name. However, if you have a name for it, feel free to leave it in the comments below. So for 28 seconds, every time you kill an enemy with an ability, you gain 50 shields. If you cannot gain shields, you gain 5% damage reduction, which scales with strength up to a hard cap of 50%. Now, the reason why the hard cap is 50% is because shields already have an innate 50% damage reduction. Therefore, you have 2 instances of 50% damage reduction, and you're constantly regenerating your shields, and you have a lot of them. So his second ability has an energy cost of 50, which is called Void Reactor. Now this one I am open to suggestions because it is kind of a bland name. So for 20 seconds, which increases with your ability duration, enemies you kill have a 30% chance to drop an energy orb. And this chance does scale with strength. Every 5 kills extends the duration of this ability by 5 seconds, which that also increases with duration, up to a hard cap of 60 seconds, which is unaffected by mods. And energy orbs collected during this time grant you status immunity and 20% damage reduction, which increases with strength, for 5 seconds, which increases with ability duration. Now, this additional 20% does not stack. Every time you collect an energy orb, you're just refreshing the duration. And his second ability is his ability that goes to the helmet. Now, the chance for an energy orb to be obtained and the entirety of the second effect is probably going to have to go when you subsume it onto another Warframe, just so that way it's not the next Nourish. Because everybody and their mother uses Nourish in this game because it is the most brain-dead way of fixing energy economy. And yep, his second ability is his energy sustain. Like, he is very energy hungry, so he generates a lot of energy to fuel those abilities. And yep, his third ability is called Vehicles of the Army, which could honestly use a name change. So you choose one of 3 vehicles to summon, and use each one giving different benefits. So yep, his Exalted K-Drive gives your secondary weapons 50% more fire rate and ammo efficiency while you're riding it. This is a nice buff to secondaries as a whole. And I know this probably isn't going to be used a lot, because using a K-Drive in non-open worlds can be a little clunky. Yep, Yorelli is living proof of that. Yep, his second ability, which is his Exalted Arcwing, which, like the K-Drive, does not have a name. Yep, while using this, you shrink down to half your normal size, making you harder to hit and increasing your speed. Now, I know the shrink is just kind of like Titania, but it's kind of necessary because non-Arcwing tile sets are not designed with Arcwings in mind, which is why Titania shrinks down so small in the first place. And yep. Yeah, his third vehicle, which everyone is probably going to enjoy, is his Exalted Necromech, which also does not have a name. Now, while using this, you can only use arc guns as a weapon, but your Exalted arc gun has no energy cost. More on that later. It has a base health of 1500 and base shield of 3000, because he's a shield tank, and everything else is the same as Exalt. And yep, your arc guns gain an extra damage instance of 50% of its damage as void damage with a guaranteed status effect. So you're imbuing your arc guns with void damage. And because of his void reactor, the whole void theme fits really well with him. Because due to said void reactor, he has a stronger connection to the void than other Warframes. And yep, each vehicle drains 15 energy per second, which is reduced with duration and efficiency. And the Necromech is the only moddable vehicle, but starts with 2 universal polarity slots and 1 Moderai polarity slot, and its max rank is 40, but you do not need to give it Forma to reach this rank. So its max rank is the same as every other Necromech in the game, but you do not need to dump 5 Forma into it. It can just automatically reach rank 40. This is because I really do not want Exalt to be Forma hungry in the slightest. So I'm being very generous with the innate polarities due to the sheer amount of things he has that you can put Forma on. Now obviously he's still going to be very Forma hungry for those of you who want to absolutely min-max him, but he's still going to be able to perform very well without much Forma at all. Now let's move on to his ultimate, Armory of the Orokin. Orokin. So yep, this name I feel like fits really well So this one will stay unless I see a name suggestion in the comments that is significantly better. So, you have access to 4 unique weapons that you may summon at any time, each draining 15 energy per second, reduced with duration and efficiency, and each weapon starts with 2 universal, 1 Naramon, and 1 Madurai polarity slot. Again, kind of going into the whole, he's not going to be very forma hungry because he has so many innate polarities. So yep, first off, we have his Exalted Rifle, which doesn't have a name. So full auto trigger with a fire rate of 1.5, critical chance 45%, and critical multiplier of 2.5 times, and a status chance of 10%. So it is very obvious this is meant to lean into crits. Of course, those of you who want to can probably make a decent status, well, a decent hybrid build, but if you're going to pure status, you will see a drop in damage. And yet, its base damage is 30 radiation and 10 void. And enemies killed by this ability leave a zone on the ground that is 4 meters wide. This zone damages all enemies in it for 50,000 void damage per second. And it lingers for 5 seconds. This damage is not affected by the mods on the weapon. It is, however, affected by your ability strength. So think Digos Ultimate as a lingering small AoE. So yep, this will allow him to deal heavy damage to small groups. Very easily. Yep, his second ability, the Exalted Dual Pistol, which also doesn't have a name. So yep, semi-auto trigger, fire rate of 3, critical chance of 15%, critical multiplier of 3 times, and a status chance of 30%. Its base damage is 10 radiation and 10 void. Now y'all may be thinking this is kinda weak. Well, here's the kicker. Yep, its unique ability is enemies hit by this ability gain 30% more vulnerability to status effects and status damage. So you're priming enemies to be more easily killed with status. So this is a status weapon that does kinda weak damage, but can still do amazing status damage. Especially since it's an Exalted, its base stats could be increased with ability strength. Now we have his Exalted Melee, which is a Glaive. So yep, its regular attack has 1.3 attack speed, a critical chance 25%, with a critical multiplier 3 times, status chance 25%, and base damage of 40 void. So yep, its regular attack, for those of you who want to build into it, is definitely a hybrid, with a decent critical multiplier, and the same critical chance and status chance. And yep, now here's probably what y'all really care about, which is its heavy attack, aka the explosion. So its critical chance is 35% with a 3x base critical multiplier. Status chance is 20% and its base damage is 60 void, and its explosion radius is 5 meters. So this thing will be hitting hard on its explosion. However, time for its unique ability. Killing enemies with this ability gives your other abilities 25% more ability strength. And this number will increase with ability strength, which is why it doesn't affect itself. So he gives himself more ability strength, making his abilities more effective. And finally, his Exalted Arc Gun. Has a fire rate of 1, critical chance of 35%, critical multiplier of 2.5 times, and status chance of 10%, with its base damage being 300 void. Killing enemies with this ability grants you a weapon damage buff of 50% void damage for 10 seconds. This stacks up to 10 times, which is not affected by mods. So this thing does pure void damage and will hit like an absolute truck. Anyway, let's get this little application out of here since I no longer need it. And I don't think I actually have a way of closing it. Did not mean to do that. Guess that's going to be a little thing for y'all. Yeah, I'm probably going to be remembered in my early days by my severe lack of editing. So any of y'all OGs will get to see those little mistakes I make. So, yep, with the application closed, his Exalted Arc Gun is basically just, like, it has the void damage version of Primary Merciless, which, with the changes we are getting to Arc Guns, means this thing will hit like an absolute truck. While also granting every other weapon in your arsenal more damage, if you don't mind pulling out and putting away your Exalted Arc Gun. Now, I went for the entire Void theme because, again, he has a Void reactor, making his connection to the Void stronger than most other Warframes. Like, I'd say the only parallel to his connection to the Void is Zaku. Now, I probably will develop the actual lore of the story, but this is the final draft of the mechanics behind Exalt. So any of y'all who want to give names to the abilities, leave your name suggestions in the comments below, and I'll be picking the best ones and putting them with the ability that I think they will fit with best. The only names that will not be changing unless you give me a really good replacement will be his first ability, Scholar's Fortitude, and his fourth ability, Armory of the Orokin. But with that, this is the Slayer 246 signing off.